After an intense meeting at the White House today, Republican leaders in the House still have not publicly revealed how they plan to move ahead with President Trump's legislative agenda. More than a dozen members of Congress were there at the White House today, where we are told the president laid out his priorities, but they did not leave with an agreement, at least not one that is clear to us, on where to start. Basically, Republicans in the House have been struggling to present a united front on how to proceed with the president's agenda, while also trying to fend off an effort by Republicans in the Senate to go around them. My source tonight is a veteran of Republican politics in the Trump White House. He was Trump's former national security advisor, Ambassador John Bolton. Ambassador, what do you make of how, we're a month into the new Congress, and it's still pretty clear that they are divided on how to proceed with Trump's agenda? And what we are told is he is not really telling them explicitly to do this or that.
Well, I think it's a very sharp contrast with the kind of blitzkrieg tactics that Elon Musk is using with some success in the early days, confronting the real political obstacles on Capitol Hill. And a lot rides on this, whether there's an extension of the 2017 tax cuts, what revenues from tariffs Trump is going to propose, and whether the incredibly thin Republican majority in the House can sustain this. I think it's also evidence of splits within Trump's support base. There are really hardcore fiscal conservatives in the House who want to see dramatic reductions in federal spending, get the annual deficit down, and begin reducing the national debt. Donald Trump has never been a fiscal conservative, never. He likes spending other people's money. So there's a lot at stake here for the administration, and at this point, clearly no direction forward.
From your experience, what is it like when he's in the room in terms of offering direction or guidance, or how he typically would handle a moment like this?
Well, on something as technical and important nonetheless as the reconciliation process, the legislative process generally, he didn't understand much about it when he became president in 2017. I don't think he learned very much in the first term, if not only today's meeting, but earlier meetings where he would seem to endorse the House Republican preference for one reconciliation bill, and then talk to the senators and endorse their preference for two reconciliation bills. He doesn't know. He doesn't feel comfortable with it. And I think as long as the issue continues undecided, the more time that goes by, potentially the weaker the chances for a united Republican position become.
What do you make of Republicans obviously control the House, as you noted, razor-thin majority, also the Senate, but we're just seeing a lot of what he is doing by executive order. Now, he's only been in office a few weeks, but Republicans typically have been harshly critical of Democrats in the White House when they have used executive orders and the power of the pen. I mean, if they want to get done what Trump wants done, it's going to have to be legislatively.
Right. Look, executive orders really allow the president to control the executive branch of government, which he is the head of, after all, and order things that already exist within statutory framework. So people who are complaining about many of Trump's executive orders really should be complaining about the performance of Congress over the past 100 years or more, as Congress, during the New Deal, just as one excellent example, ceded huge amounts of discretionary authority to the executive. The presidencies over time didn't pick all of this up off the ground by themselves. Congress gave up power. And today, you have a lot of question whether many members of Congress would know how to write a bill if that task fell to them. So this is a point where there should be a struggle. That's what the separation of powers is all about. I think the legislative performance to date has been almost non-existent.
Yeah, I think it was the least productive Congress in the last one. We'll see what this one looks like. But I'm curious your view. I was in the room the other night when Trump was standing shoulder to shoulder with the Israeli prime minister, talking about the U.S. taking ownership of Gaza, something that he repeated again earlier this morning on Truth Social, talked about the idea of handing it to Gaza. It reminded everyone of a moment that happened in a debate, the Republican primary debates of the 2016 campaign, where Marco Rubio, now Secretary of State, was on stage with Trump talking about Gaza, and this is what he said.
The Palestinians are not a real estate deal, Donald.
Okay, no. A deal.
They're not a real estate deal.
A deal is a deal. Let me tell you,
a deal is not a deal when you're dealing with terrorists.
We're now hearing from Secretary Rubio softening Trump's plan a bit for what he laid out for Gaza. But I wonder how you saw what Trump laid out.
Well, I was fascinated that when he talked about Gaza, he read from a piece of paper. That was very clear. I just love to know who wrote that piece of paper, who caused him to say the United States was going to own Gaza. Look, there are really two issues here. The first is, what's the U.S. role going to be post-war in Gaza? I don't think it will look anything like what Trump suggested on Tuesday night. I don't think there'd be any support for it. It'd be very dangerous in the circumstances. He doesn't want to put troops in, which wouldn't be advisable anyway. So a lot of that, I think you can just disregard. The issue, though, that is critical is whether people are going to continue to insist on laying the basis for a two-state solution, which is utterly failed, utterly dead, and what's going to be done from a humanitarian point of view from the Palestinians living in Gaza, who have been used for decades by radical Arab states beginning in the 50s and 60s as a weapon to drive Israel into the sea, which isn't going to happen. So there's a lot to decide there, and I think simply rebuilding a high-rise refugee camp in Gaza is a prescription for another October 7 in due course.
If you're the national security advisor now, though, and Trump tells you that's what he wants the U.S. to do, to occupy Gaza after this war is over, you say?
Well, the only thing you can say when you're talking to him privately that way is, well, have you considered the following considerations, the amount of security that would be required for significant U.S. involvement in clearing Gaza and then rebuilding it, the lack of likely private investors to put billions of dollars into an area that's subject to terrorist attacks. Remember the saying, capital is a coward. You're not going to get private investment in a highly politically risky, non-secure situation. You have to get security before you get the investment. That's why this whole idea of the Eastern Mediterranean Riviera is just utterly unrealistic. Gaza is not a viable economic entity. It's one reason why the two-state solution was doomed to fail, because Gaza and a bunch of dots on the West Bank do not constitute a viable economy.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.